put on CBZ t-shirts to the trip to Chobe.
That's why I wanted this film earlier on.
Not sure if there are any other notices, but because of our time, we just want to move on. Let's just applaud ourselves for over 400 delegates at this centennial winter school. Chief Executive, who has been the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of AdCorp Holdings Limited since October 2017. Mr. Dutiro is a senior business executive and extensive and varied executive and board-level experience in strategy, consulting, business turnaround, post-merger integration, performance improvement, and executive management in banking, FMCG, engineering sectors. He served as CEO of International and CEO again of South East Asia at MMI Holdings since June 2016 until October 2017. He also served as CEO of India at MMI Holdings since July 2016. Mr. Dutiro joined MMI with a wealth of experience, having been a partner at Bain & Company in Johannesburg. He is a highly effective negotiator and communicator with great people skills, along with strong leadership, problem-solving, decision-making abilities, and an eye for the bottom line. He held senior leadership positions at Deloitte Consulting, Gemini Consulting, Nedbank Retail, and South African Breweries. His professional accomplishments include successfully integrated two disparate wealth management and private banking brands to form a full-service wealth and private banking business for one of South Africa's top 4 banking groups. Led a successful turnaround of a courier and freight business, developed and implemented the concept of an online digital financial services business for one of SA's largest insurers, led the financial and strategic turnaround of one of South Africa's development finance institutions, and conceived and set up a Pan-African focused real estate fund for one of SA's top asset managers. As an engineer, he led several power stations and chemical plant maintenance programs. He holds an MSc, BSc degree in mechanical engineering. Help me welcome Mr. Innocent Dutiro to the podium. As you can see, he's a successful negotiator. Hopefully, he will negotiate after the elections.
I was listening to a description and wondering who you're talking about. I am not an accountant, as you Simba said. I'd like to think of myself as an engineer. And so I can count. I've been counting the number of people in this room. They don't get to 400. But I also understand the concept of friction and attrition, which might have happened overnight. I saw when the buses left that they were not necessarily heading to bank, but to other more interesting places. I accepted this invitation with trepidation because the topic was on competition and re-entering the global village. And I was asking myself, what is it that I know about it? And then, but when I started doing research and looking at the number of places that I've been to and successes that I've come across and failures, I thought there is some substance to talk about. Before I start, it's actually quite a pleasure to be in Victoria Falls because my working career started not very far away from here. I started off as a power station engineer at Wange Power Station. So as an early 20-something-year-old in the 80s, it was always a destination of choice to spend our weekends at Vic Falls. So thank you, ICAZ, for inviting me. So let me start. I think competition when one thinks about competition, and obviously when I was preparing for this, it was during the Football World Cup, and I thought of physical competition within amongst the teams, and what you need to do to be fit for competition is in some ways similar to what nations need to do. Nations compete for a share of the world's wealth, and one should realize that when we talk about investment or competition for investment, it's not just that there's some people sitting on the sidelines wanting to invest in other countries and looking at where the best destination for their investment is. They are actually also competing. They see your environment as an area where they can access some of the competitive factors. So one of the things, if you look at countries, they can create advantage for themselves by investing technology, skilled labor, and targeting investment in particular sectors. These factors which enable competition are in addition to those factors that naturally come to us, which is our natural resources, like land, our location, geographical location, the labor and population size. A lot of countries make the mistake of saying, we have those natural resources and therefore we are competitive. We wait for people to come and invest in our natural resources. That just gives you a right to the game, a ticket to the game. That's your starting point. The countries that succeed go beyond the natural resources to actually focus on the other factors that would help them to be more competitive. It's been made complicated over the last few decades by the concept of globalization. Globalization has been the key driver of the world's economic and societal progress. When you look at GDP and other measures of well-being for countries. And it's arguable that humanity today is in a better position than it has ever been because of globalization and the links between different countries. The 2008 financial crisis was a blip in the globalization drive, and it's argued that the world has recovered somewhat from that temporary blip. And the future really would depend on policies of decision makers and business leaders around the world. When you talk about this, you think of Trump's drive at protectionism, etc., the anti-globalization drive. But clearly, whether one thinks is bluffing or is serious, the trend of globalization seems to be unstoppable. And recently, that global competitiveness has been driven by digitalization. There's been greater flow of information and data as connectivity increases. If you look at trade, really global goods trade has seen a significant growth in the decade from 2006 to 2016. However, when you look at the volume of world merchandise trade, it has been declining since 2014, as there has been a continuing weakness in the global economy, and low commodity prices have had a negative impact on global import demand. When you look at the numbers, world exports of manufactured goods increased from 8 trillion in 2006 to 11 trillion in 2016. Driven primarily by agricultural products, with declining, however, in fuels and mining products, which is important when you think of Zimbabwe as essentially a mining economy, that there's been a decline in mining exports. Let's turn to Zimbabwe and let's talk about closer to home. The World Economic Forum produces an annual competitiveness report. If you look at it from a Zimbabwean perspective, our position has been declining over the last few years. The latest report ranks us at 124 out of 137 countries that they surveyed. When you look at some of the countries that are there, you actually be ashamed to say that you're sitting behind those countries. And there are a number of factors, obviously, that impact on that. When you look at the report, Zimbabwe lags in the area of innovation and in technical capacity, our quality of scientific research institutions, our availability of scientists and engineers. When I looked at that, I was a bit embarrassed. Investment in research and development, and our production of patents. I was commenting to somebody when I saw the paper on the table, and I was saying, do we have a protection of patents and IP in this country? Because that paper looks remarkably like one that I've seen before. And another factor that is contributing to Zimbabwe's poor performance and competitiveness is the business environment, which has proven challenging in a number of areas, purely for both foreign and local businesses due to our monetary and fiscal standing, including liquidity challenges. I might also add that in the decade when there was a commodities boom, where if you check Zimbabwe as a commodity economy, in the period where there was a huge commodity boom, that's the period when Zimbabwe was at its most intractable political challenges, and therefore that particular boom passed us by. The economy did not benefit at all from that particular boom, and that boom was followed by what's proving to be a long, drawn-out depression in the economy. That's when we're trying to re-enter the global economy. Turning to resources. So countries with a natural abundance with an abundance in natural resources are often seen, ironically, to be the ones with less economic growth, and there are a number of factors that drive that. And many of the world's biggest economic success stories have happened in places where there are very few or no advantageous natural resources. And let's try and unpack why that is the case. Well, if you look at the countries where we've had high economic growth with low natural resources, think of mainly, particularly in Asia. Singapore does not have a single natural resource except their ports. They've transitioned from being one of the poorest countries in the world to one of the richest. Japan and South Korea rebuilt their war-torn countries and became two of the most advanced economies on the planet through hard industrialization and very importantly, education. China, which used to be a poor country and a net oil exporter, is now the world's second largest economy and a top importer of oil. When you look at, on the other hand, countries that are richer in natural resources have ended up much poorer. I wouldn't even mention countries like the DRC, etc. But North Korea has access to more mineral wealth than South Korea, and they share a border, but the South has proven more successful. In West Africa, you have oil-rich Equatorial Guinea, which has a higher GDP than Poland, but the life expectancy of its citizens is 20 years lower than that of the average in Poland. It's argued that many resource-rich countries have not lived up to their developmental potential, due in part to the negative effects that being naturally resource-rich has on the economy, society, and politics in these countries. Profits from natural resources extraction can create the perception that money comes easy, and it's also open to rent seeking, as those with access to licenses, etc., can trade these for their own personal wealth to the detriment of the country. But it is easy, money does come easy if you've got resources, but the profit margins are far lower than those gained from way downstream in the value chain. The result can easily become societies where the combined energy and creativity and talent of the people are focused on finding ways of capturing the scraps of profits from the natural resources rather than finding other forms of value creation. We look at owning the mineral wealth, etc., and instead of building infrastructure and building the more difficult stuff but more profitable stuff. In addition, unlike producing cars or manufacturing textiles, natural resource extraction can occur almost completely separate from the rest of the economy, employing a relatively small workforce and contributing little in terms of technology transfer and development. Increasingly, the growing adoption of digitalization across the globe puts even more pressure on the economic success that can be realized from only extraction and export of natural raw materials. So it's important as a country to look at those capabilities that you want to spike on in terms of investment. You need to identify what are you going to use to compete as a country. If you, sometimes when you've got resources, you tend to relax and say, we have platinum, we have diamonds, and we will get investment. But that investment is actually more for the benefit of the investor than it is for you. You're going to get scraps from that value chain. If you look at globalization and digitalization, in the digital era of globalization, there is huge flows of data and information, and small companies now can become multinationals by the click of the mouse. And they're able to reach international markets by creating your own website. You don't have to have the infrastructure that the Anglos, the Unilevers, or the Nestles needed in the days gone by. So in companies with economies of scale, or no economies of scale in the traditional sense, can become global giants easily. I think I like this slide because it, as we talk about digitalization, we actually do not realize the kind of impact that digitalization has, not just on our ability to compete as countries, but what is required to be able to compete. If you look at children entering primary school at the moment, 65% of them will hold jobs that currently do not exist. If you do the study now, in terms of where we were when I was at Fletcher High School many years ago, I mean the old Fletcher, not the current Fletcher, the kind of jobs that I'm interacting with were never available as an option. And more than 1 billion jobs and almost $14.6 trillion in wages are automatable in today's technology. A lot of the jobs that people do at the moment are not yet automated simply because of social considerations. A lot of the work that people do, there will be an impact on lawyers, there will be a huge impact on accountants. It's happening already. If you did audits in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the stuff that you used to do manually now is automated. We, in our business, we calculate, we have a huge base of people that we place, probably about 80,000 people at any given point in time. And we payroll them, and we use part of the payments, statutory deductions, are UIF. We used to have 10 people calculating the UIF for that base. We deployed a robot, and we only have 1 person now that actually does that work. And there are a lot of areas in our business that we're thinking of deploying robots, including a lot of financial processes. Artificial intelligence can double annual economic growth, and people ask, what's going to happen to jobs? And I think there's more a philosophical argument on that in terms of what the role of jobs is. And I always go back to how jobs were created. I think in the olden days, people were not employed. They would go out and look for food and hunt and farm, etc. And as industrialization came by, we would trade our labor for money, and then we go and buy food. So I always argue that if we gave you food, leisure, and everything else that you need, do you still need a job? Maybe not. But as human beings do, we tend to socialize necessity. So having a job has become a source of status in society, but actually it's nothing more than going out and looking for food and money to pay for your recreation. It also, technology will increase productivity. What's actually more important in this, ironically, and it's an ironic fact where when you talk to the millennials and the younger generation coming into work now, and you try and interview them, they turn out to be interviewing you because they are looking for areas where they are looking for a great employee experience, not the days when we would say, I'm selling myself to the employer. The employer has to sell themselves. So those companies that provide great experience are likely to succeed in future. When I look at global connectedness, I talked about digitalization and connectedness being very important. There is a survey that shows which are the most connected countries, and it's not coincidence that Singapore are close to the top. And there is a correlation between connectedness and economic growth. And by being the center in the center of e-commerce, that's also a source of competitive advantage for the country. So let's look at why Singapore is doing it right. They are ranked number one in terms of the globalization hotspot, which is cities with the most intense international flows, as well as top globalization giant cities with the largest absolute international flow of data and information through them. And in this survey, digital competitiveness is defined as the capacity of an economy to adopt and explore digital technologies, leading to the transformation in government practices, business models, and society in general, in ways that strengthen future value creation opportunities. And a few things that Singapore has been doing right. The private sectors across the globe are driving digital innovation. If you look at other countries, it's the private sector that is driving innovation in digitalization. In Singapore, it's actually the government that is leading the way. And recently, Singapore and Siemens have joined forces in a drive to make Singapore a smart nation. As a result, Singapore will be the first country in the world to pilot MindSphere, which is Siemens' open cloud-based operating system for the Internet of Things, to digitalize its infrastructure as much as possible. Singapore is proving successful in adopting technology to address the demands and capacity of its existing road infrastructure, with roads already occupying 12% of Singapore's relatively small land area. The focus on public transport and electric car sharing is accelerating. If you think of where we are, and if you think that the world is going to things like the electric car, it's not just about digitalization. Just imagine electric cars trying to navigate some of our roads. The coding and the programming has to be serious to avoid the potholes that we see on the way. Within all this, though, actually it is very important to see that there is a strong drive towards what I call human-centered economic progress. You might think that the human being is being ignored in the process to digitalize and automate, but the perception that current economic approaches do not serve people and societies well enough is gaining ground, prompting calls for new models of human-centered economic progress. The value of economic growth for society has come into question as a result of increasing inequality across all countries. In emerging economies, a growing middle class has fueled higher aspirations and demands for better public goods. The goal of human-centered progress is to increase is the increase in sustainable and equitable welfare for a country's population, ensuring that technological progress of the 21st century augments rather than substitutes human potential and employment around the world. It is therefore important for countries to monitor closely the factors that determine competitiveness, while keeping an eye on the wider societal goals and related trade-offs. It's not going to be enough just to be successful economically. I think we need to be sensitive and aware of the impact on society from a humanity perspective. Also, given the proliferation of social media and communication, movements can be created that could cause instability. In conclusion, when you look at what the key takeaways would be, countries can create competitive advantage for themselves by investing in technology, skilled labor, targeted investment in sectors of economy, in addition to the resources that a country inherently possesses. if you find yourself in your economic discourse talking about how you're going to get your resource dividend exclusively without talking about other competitive measures, you are likely to be lagging behind. Global competitiveness has increasingly become driven by digitalization. Digital technologies are changing the future of work, and the digital revolution will drive even greater global connectedness. Technological advances come with the risk of greater income inequality. Thus, there is a growing call for human-centered economic progress. Last week, or a few weeks ago, I had the privilege to attend the address by Barack Obama at the Wanderers Cricket Club. One of the things that he mentioned was the increasing concentration of wealth at the top end. And it's not, one would think that digitalization and technology would democratize wealth, but actually it's creating bigger and fewer billionaires, and they are actually now transcending governments and basically around the world. So it's a concern that one needs to address in terms of inequality. I will pause here and take questions. In my consulting days, when we did presentations, we either got two responses. No questions because you've done such a great job, or no questions because nobody has a clue what you've been talking about. I'll take the first one. Okay.
Before you leave the podium, we just want to call Manyara to hand in a token of appreciation. All our tokens of appreciation, courtesy of Olivin. Can we give them a round of applause? While Manyara is coming, I just wanted to explain to you where my 400 delegates came from. 100 from the first charter, plus 40 on the second charter, equals to 400.
I'm just wondering whether Olivin makes green soap.
So, this is a question. Do you have a mic?
I suppose we are at some point at a turning point for Zimbabwe, hopefully for the best. And some of the disruptive technologies Zimbabwe takes on digitalization of the past. The Zimbabwe situation, what do you think would be, if you were sitting there and you were to advise whoever becomes the next president, what are the 3 or 2 focus areas that you would ask that man to look at?
Okay, I think before I get to the focus areas, the one thing that I would impress by anyone who's taking over, the first thing is about national self-interest. What is the interest of Zimbabwe as a country, not individuals? And that's an important departure point, because it then drives the decisions that you make. So the first thing is infrastructure. And it's not just infrastructure that leads you to resources, but actually the infrastructure in the country. We are wanted to have one of the best education systems on the continent. I'm not sure where it is now. I know for certain when I went to school it was like that.
It's okay.
But the education is not just about what you learned in school. It's about shaping your aspirations and the extent of your aspirations. What does good look like? And that needs to be defined at a national level. And we need to aspire to what is good in an absolute sense rather than relative to where we are. Because when I was at UZ many moons ago, and I left UZ 32 years ago, which is it is a very different place to what it was then. Second Street Extension at that point competed with the best of places that I've been since, and I've been to many countries in the world. But when I take my kids there now, they're almost embarrassed to say that I used to spend my time in those areas. But now people, when they talk about improving those areas, they're talking about improving them from where they are, not to an absolute destination. So we need to set those goals at a level which is not related to where we are, but where we're supposed to be. And so when somebody talks about bullet trains, it sounds crazy, but that's the kind of dream that you need, which Kennedy had about putting a man on the moon. They laughed at him in 1963, but it happened. And then at that point, it sounded like a dream, which it was. People are allowed to dream. If you don't dream, you can't get anywhere. And they say, if you aim for the stars and you miss, you might hit the moon. But if you aim for the clouds, you're not going to go much higher. So I think it is important to set goals as a focus. And then decide given the size of the country and the resources that we have, what will enable our competition? There's countries like Malaysia and Singapore didn't have much. The one thing that they realized that they had was people and maybe good natural habits. And they over-invested and spiked on education, on educating their people and making sure that wherever those people end, they have a connection to Singapore. India as well. If you count the number of global CEOs that are Indian, Microsoft, PepsiCo, I think, and a lot of others, they're Indians with a strong connection to India. And a lot of them went to the national technical training colleges in India. It's not like they started off at Harvard, but they were trained in India. India invested in their natural resources and kept the connection between their Indian diaspora and the Indian homeland. Zimbabwe does not exploit its massive diaspora. There are lots of people in positions of decision making in the diaspora who are not connected at all to the motherland. And that needs to be encouraged and built. And so it's not, they shouldn't be seen as competition. If they come back, then they will squeeze the space that we as individuals have and will take over the resources. I think it should be seen as part of building rather than competition. And that's why I talk about national self-interest as opposed to individual self-interest. Sorry, I'm preaching a little bit, I'm not a politician.
Thank you, Innocent. We just want to appreciate our sponsors. Platinum's sponsors, we have ZB, CBZ, Deloitte, Old Mutual. Gold, we have got Liquid Telecoms and Econet, together with Net1. Silver, BDO, Siemens, Fidelity Life Assurance, First Mutual Life, Grant Thornton, OK Zimbabwe, PwC, Sidco. Bronze, we have KPMG, African Century, AMG Global, Nyaradzo Group, Schweppes, Complex, and also others with Amtech, Delta, Marion and Hill, Securico, AMH, Astra Holdings, Datlabs, EY, Olivin, Surface Welshire, and FedEx. Big round of applause to our sponsors. At this stage, let me invite a representative from Net1 for the marketing slot. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Are they around, or we gonna move? We'll give them a slot at the end of the next presentation. The next presentation is coming from a lady, and it's about performance management. The name of the presenter is Regina, and is a 2-time IPMZ award winner as personal practitioner for the year in 2007 and recently in 2018 as the female practitioner of the year, second runner-up. She's currently the Human Resources and Admin Director at Premier Services Medical Aid Society. Regina is a well-respected HR professional with more than 20 years experience working in various human resources leadership capacity in reputable multinational organizations, including PwC, KPMG, and Econet Wireless. Besides Zimbabwe, her country experience includes Botswana, Malawi, South Africa, and Swaziland. Regina holds a Bachelor of Science Honours degree in Sociology, a Master of Business Leadership degree, and a program in Business Leadership from UNISA, as well as a diploma in personal management from IPMZ. Regina is the author of the book In Pursuit of Righteousness. The book has been picked up by Porcupine Press in South Africa for republishing this year, 2018, and now renamed A Bully in the Office Next Door. The book is uniquely written and based on a true story, raises awareness on corporate human resource management, malpractices, and proffers a number of practical lessons and tips around governance and ethical human resource management. She is an avid philanthropist involved in working with people living with disabilities and upholding the dignity of less privileged members of the society. Regina is married to Mnyaradzi and have been blessed with 3 children. Help me welcome Regina to the podium.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. When I got the invite from ICAZ, I went like, wow, at last, the captains of industry have come to realize the importance of human resources management at the workplace. The biggest question I asked myself is, with the way HR has been treated, especially in Zimbabwe, you know, at the back burner, but the captains trust us with performance management. I was just saying to myself, you know what, we need to up the standard of human resources management. It's one of the professions that doesn't have any standards, but we do run the performance management for industry. In terms of the book, interestingly, it has changed the title. When I put my CV to ICAZ, it had a bully in the office next door, but it has since changed to my boss, the bully. South Africa found that to be more relevant. I'm going to touch on performance management at the workplace. And ladies and gentlemen, allow me to start on my presentation. In terms of my coverage, I'm going to talk about a business case for performance management, whether we do have really the need for performance management at the workplace. I'll also touch on the global perspective of performance management, our local approaches to performance management, recommendations for Zimbabwe, and I'll finish off with the future of performance management. In terms of putting things into perspective, what is performance management? Let me take you back to school a little bit. The scientific definition of work is force times distance. You will notice that what we are saying here is, for you to say you've worked, there should be a little bit of force, isn't it? And we still have those terms like workforce applicable in certain organizations. We still have terms like uniformed forces within the Labor Relations Act. And obviously what we are saying here is work is to do with a little bit of force for you to get some move in terms of your operations. But is this still applicable in today's world, where we have to use force for us to be said that we have performed? My definition of performance management is that, of performance rather, is that you have to have energy and time, which will then lead to effort times distance, and then you will get the desired results. I'm not so sure why we call our places of work workplaces, because the issue is we want to be able to perform. And the only profession that uses the word performance are the artists. And if you look at the artist, for example, Jah Praiser, if he's going to perform, there is energy, you know, there is excitement. They look forward to it. But for us at the workplace, what do? We wake up in the morning, you sit at the edge of your bed, you say, oh my God, that place again. This is happening, ladies and gentlemen, in today's environment. Let's look at management in terms of the definition. The textbook definition is, I'm sure you have all done some management programs: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. I agree in terms of the planning aspect, in terms of the leading aspect, in terms of the organizing aspect. My big question is the issue of control, especially control of the people that we lead. I appreciate that the higher up you go, it's more about getting results out of other people, isn't it? It's not about the technical expertise that you have. But do you have to be controlling people? And are people willing to be controlled for them to perform? Let me just reflect back on the previous speaker who was talking about the millennials. These are the people that we are working with today, ladies and gentlemen. In the old era, when you see someone dressed like this, you would think they are orphans, isn't it? These are the children that we are bringing up. These are our granddaughters. These are us sitting here, some of us. These people are people. And they've got a completely different value proposition. They are looking for an employee experience. They are looking for encouragement. They look you in the face and they want to give you feedback. They want to tell you that don't treat me like my shoe size, these youngsters. So it's a different ballgame altogether, which requires a completely different management style, a completely different performance management approach in terms of the way we are managing them. 2 weeks ago, I was at the IPMZ conference and we're doing some analytics. You may need to do this. When you go back to your workplaces, you will notice that the majority of these people, they are now taking up management positions. Ladies and gentlemen, Generation X, the truth is, in 10 years from now, these are the leaders of tomorrow. So the value proposition has changed. Soft issues have become hard issues in the boardroom. This is according to one of the big 4 firms. And what are we saying? As leaders of business, as captains of industry, we need to start talking about the people factors within our businesses, because the people are the ones that drive performance. You can only get the desired results if your people are aligned to your strategies, if your people appreciate what you are pushing for from a strategic point of view. Do we have a case for performance management? Let's look at it from a product perspective. Before the 1990s, we were looking at situations like 0% defect in terms of our products. But today we are looking at continuous improvement. We are looking at the need to innovate because they are market disruptors. I remember when Econet came about with EcoCash, you know, the bankers, they were up in arms. They even were about to take them to court. I remember the Queer versus DSTV issue. So what are we saying, ladies and gentlemen? We need the innovation. We need to continuously improve. In terms of product life cycle, you will realize that the products have become, in terms of the life cycle, they've become shorter and shorter. So what we need to do is to move with the times. Issues of campaign closures, the issue of racing with time and resources, and the competition on the share of the wallet. So what we are saying is, if I'm holding $1 today, in terms of my priorities, what would I prioritize on? Do I go for food? Do I go for beer? What do I go for? So in terms of leaders and captains, we need to make sure that whatever products we are giving, they are relevant from a performance point. We do adopt a number of strategies within businesses. The issue of reduction of costs, I'm sure we are very familiar with that. Management of growth, working smarter. All those are strategies that organizations are adopting in order to survive from a performance point. From a global perspective, you will notice that performance management is actually very relevant. 96% of the companies that were surveyed on in 2009, they actually confirmed across the world that performance management is the way to go. And the new thinking is that people are the only source of competitive advantage. But the biggest question I have for the captains of industry looking at me right now is, where do you put them on your balance sheet? They are an expense, isn't it? So we are misrepresenting. Are they our most important assets? Let's just reflect on that. The new employee value proposition from a global perspective, they are shifting from the traditional goal setting, discussions on performance, and then year-end review and compensation. They are looking more at more constant feedback. They are looking more at simplifying the whole performance management process. We'll look at our country, Zimbabwe, and we'll see where we are very soon. They are also emphasizing the need for learning within an organization. And you can see that from a study that was done, business organizations are the universities of the future. So in terms of our strategies going forward, if we want performance management to work, our organizations have to be aligned from a learning perspective. I remember Primrose Kurasha, the late, once said that if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. But what do businesses do when it comes to, when the organization is underperforming? The first thing they do is they want to cut on people, they want to cut on development of people, because they look at them as an expense. In terms of the Hall of Fame businesses, you can see that there is no single company that is there that is within Zimbabwe. And we should ask ourselves why. But we'll notice that in terms of the Hall of Fame organizations, there are certain things that are common amongst all of them. The issue of a structured performance management system, all of them, they do have that as 100% real-time performance results, concerned more about what fuels performance rather than the past. So the rear view mirror of looking at performance management, the world over, they are moving away from that. But you will notice that in terms of our Zimbabwean perspective, we are still looking at performance from the past. So the lag indicators are the ones that are advising us or informing us from a performance point of view. In terms of the Zimbabwean performance environment, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reality that we face. Our environment has been quite tense, even at national level. You will notice that even at employment level, the environment has also been very tense because there is a push on cutting costs and making sure that there is efficiency in terms of the way we are doing business. But that's exerting a lot of pressure in terms of the key asset that we are saying they have to perform at a certain level. The workplace, ladies and gentlemen, has become the main source of stress. Why? Because of our leadership styles. We are exposing the subordinates that are reporting to us to a lot of stress unknowingly. We are also pushing for the issue of wellness within the business. But the issue at the end of the day is, are we complementing that wellness with our leadership and management styles? High unemployment rates, so the employees that we are seeing at our workplaces, they are coming with a lot of burden at the workplace. And what are we saying in terms of assisting them to cope from a manager-employee relations point of view? The employee pulse is at the lowest. They are living on a so long life basis. Diaspora impact on the family setup. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a reality. Most of the employees that are reporting to us are coming from single parent-owned households where either the father is out of the country or the mother is out of the country. So you can imagine what's going on in terms of our social fabric. The demand and supply of labor, there is more demand, there is less demand and there's more supply. If you walk in the streets of Harare, you find that they are overfilled with people selling. All those issues are putting a lot of stress on the people that we are supposed to get results from. People are in a survival mode. Food for thought. And how are we complementing that from a performance point in terms of our practices, in terms of our leadership styles? The value proposition for HR, we're looking at all those areas. That's what we are responsible for. But the true HR managers, ladies and gentlemen, are your line managers. HR is there to just guide in terms of best practice, but the true HR managers are the people that are looking at me right now. You've got a number of people that report to you, and you do run the businesses through those people. But how are we managing them to make sure that they maximize in terms of their performance and output? Zimbabwe has got a number of systems that we are using from a performance point, ladies and gentlemen. You find that the balance scorecard is the one that's the main at 57%. But I appreciate that in terms of most of the big four firms, for example, they actually have got tailor-made performance management systems. System automation. The past speaker has been talking about the issue of digitization. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at 67% in terms of our automation. And you can imagine, most of the businesses, they do have performance management systems, but they are still filling forms in this day and era, where we are saying the millennials are the ones that are dominating. And I'm sure you fully appreciate the way they shun putting too much effort and too much work in anything. They want simplified processes, but we still have got some very difficult processes for them. The process that's followed, we're still very much behind, ladies and gentlemen, still doing the goal setting in January, and then we go on half-year reviews, but all these are very manual, very basic, not even related to the strategies that we are pursuing. Local CEO perception on performance management. The local CEOs, they actually put a lot of effort on the bottom line. So they are saying that's where our focus is in terms of the quantifiable. But the world has moved, ladies and gentlemen. They are looking at the qualifiable aspects of performance management, the issue of the how we are managing the people factor. Values are key to performance standardization. CEOs believe that values are very important, but are they walking the talk even at that very high level when they are in their small, or not small rather, big offices? Do they even think of the values in terms of their communication, in terms of their practices? You know, when the Zuba judgment came on board, what did we do as captains of industry? We rushed to implementing, isn't it? Without any degree of sensitivity, without any degree of putting yourself in that person's shoes. But we are saying on the walls we have got empathy in terms of one of our values. What are we saying? Food for thought. Performance should be the basis for career advancement and succession planning. Do we have succession plans? Do we? Most organizations, they don't. And why do we not have those succession plans? Because we are saying we have to die in that job, isn't it? No development plans for CEOs. What I've realized from my HR peers is that the moment you are reporting to a chartered accountant, we don't think of them in terms of development. But we are saying the higher up you go, the more you have to get results through people. So your people skills should be at the highest level. But what are we saying? So 90% are not confident with the system functionality. But we talk performance management every day. But 90% of us leaders, we are not even confident. Why? Because of all the issues that I've alluded to. Staff perception on performance management. They assume it's an HR role, one of those administrative tasks that has to be done. You know, it's a bother. They don't like it. So you find that 94% say it's very biased. 93% are saying it's an HR role. And 83% is an unnecessary evil. Because there is a lot of favoritism, there are a lot of issues there. It's aligned to the compensation decisions. So it's a time for a manager to show who they are and their powers within the business. What are the issues, or why performance management issues in Zimbabwe? The first one is the issue of our strategy, the execution. We go for retreats, isn't it, every year? But do we come up with any plans to make sure that we have got a plan to implement or execute that strategy? In most cases, we don't have. Structural alignment. One scholar of thought came up with the statement that structure follows structure. But is it that easy to implement? How many of us go for a strategy retreat and come back, before we know it, we are busy changing positions on the structure? Does that ever happen? The structure that we joined, the organizations that was there 15 years ago, in some organizations it's the same structure, but every year we are going for strategies. Sobering thoughts. The issue of HR reporting to finance. HR is relegated. And I know where it comes from. Because we were saying, you know, with my colleagues, we are to some extent to blame. Because anyone can qualify to be an HR manager. Anyone. Whoever doesn't do so well, they pick up an HR course. Before we know it, they are running your HR. And what do captains of industry do to the HR people? You then give them tasks of, you know, representing you during funerals. When an employee passes on, they read the obituary. Yet we are saying the people factor is the biggest factor in this world today. HR is perceived as an expense, like I have said. So we need to move away from that and give them the priority that they deserve. The system, manual and cumbersome. It takes a lot of time for us to be able to complete. Actually, if anything, the HR people themselves, they can't even relate the scorecard of the corporate scorecard to what's happening across the business from a performance point. So how do you expect the system to operate efficiently? It's also marred with a lot of subjectivity because of the qualitative aspects that we have to look at from a performance point. The skills factor, lack of people management skills. Ladies and gentlemen, you find that, like I've said, because the profession is looked at with a very inferior eye, you will notice that HR for non-HR managers, most of us, we don't even want to look at that. We don't even want to consider that in terms of a qualification that we should have. Yet we are saying people are the most important asset within an organization. The issue of coaching and constructive feedback skills, that's a big gap that we have in industry. You find that it's very okay to give positive feedback, but when it comes to developmental feedback, most of us, because of probably cultural prescriptions, we can't look someone in the eye and tell them, you know what, you are messing up. We don't have those skills. And low uptake of the developmental feedback. So not many of us can take or stomach negative feedback. So that actually affects performance management functionality. On the staff side, there is low buy-in. They perceive management as not walking the talk. And the system, that it lacks transparency. That's the general feel among Zimbabweans. In terms of the style of management, how are we pushing these people or getting results from these people? We still use traditional styles, very hard and task-oriented styles, not looking at more consultation, more engagement, and that's affecting performance management in general. The biggest elephant in the room, shared values. We do have them, ladies and gentlemen, in all our organizations. They are stuck there on the wall. They are accumulating dust. No one even bothers or remembers. If I'm to ask, as I'm standing here, what are your corporate values? Most of you, you don't even know them. So how do you then walk them? How do you then live them? So they are not really shared because there is no way of ingraining them across the business. Our cultural prescriptions, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a lot of relationships that we create at the workplace that then restrict us from a performance management point of view. So we've got them Mseyamas. If someone is Mseyama, they become Mzukuru wangu. And because I'm Mzukuru, it becomes very difficult to correct them. Leadership not walking the talk because we don't even know the values. We are outsourcing a lot of activities. For example, the security guards. And where do we put them? Right in front of our businesses. They are the first contact in terms of our clients. But do they even have a clue in terms of our value system? They don't. But they're the first contact. They're the ones that our clients actually ask questions about our businesses. So when we outsource, we have to do something in terms of ingraining our corporate values to these people. The issue of virtual offices. We don't have to be coming to the office every day to operate. So what value system can we share when we don't have to be coming? The world over, this has become the in thing. Unfortunately, the Zimbabwean culture is such that, like I've said earlier, I don't know what happens with our captains that are looking at me right now. When you are in the big four firms, you are very reasonable, I think. When you join us in industry, you are now looking for very big offices. You want to be called Mr. So-and-so. You create huge barriers between yourself and the people. a completely different culture that we see in the Big Four, in the auditing firms, for example. The issue of accommodation of diversity. Ladies and gentlemen, we talk of 10% of our employees from a values perspective that they should actually be from the minorities. But what have we done from an infrastructure point of view to accommodate those people that are on wheelchairs, for example? The people that cannot walk. We are putting up infrastructure. We have got first floor, ground floor, no elevator. What are we saying? It means our culture generally is exclusive. We exclude people living with disabilities. We've got elevators. If a blind person comes in there, they don't even communicate to them. You know, like this is first floor, this is second floor, this is this. They have to disclose confidential information to people that they don't know because they want to be guided in terms of which floor they are going to. Food for thought in terms of our accommodation of diversity. Even at national level, you look at issues of, you know, sexual orientation. What's our position as Zimbabwe? Because what is the position in terms of the global perspective? We are lagging behind in all those areas, and we need to do something from a performance management point of view, because those are the things that are affecting our people. You know, I was talking to the engineers were here some 3 weeks or so ago, and my boss happens to be an engineer. So he was sharing with me the issue of businesses asking for prayers before meetings. We do it, isn't it? But do we know that amongst those people, there are some people that do not believe in what we believe in? How are we accommodating them? Food for thought. Recommendations for Zimbabwe. Over-service the executive's performance agreements. We need to distill the strategy down to the lowest level. We need to hold leaders accountable. They have to have fixed term contracts, performance related. So if you are a CEO, what I'm simply saying is your contract should be minimum 3 years, maximum 5 years. Show us what you are made of. Prove your worth. And it's renewable based on performance. If you're an HR director, finance director, 3 to 4 year, 5 year contracts, renewable based on performance. Up until we get to that point where we have got contracts that are performance based, that's when we'll start realizing the benefit of performance management in Zimbabwe. Prioritize the how of people management. Make strategy execution an everyday job for everyone. What am I saying? We should have a strategy manager on our structures who actually monitors our performance dashboard in real time. Most of our structures, we don't even have a strategy manager. And what are we saying? Institute ways to ingrain living the values into staff. When you do your training sessions, start with your vision, mission, and values. Let them live them. From wherever they are, let them think and live performance management, because that's why we are in business. Exercise flexibility in your people management style. You cannot apply one size fits all when it comes to people management. No ways, it doesn't work. It has to be situational and empower staff to make decisions. Millennials, they want to be empowered. They don't want dictators. They want you to consult them. They want you to engage them. Go digital. To enable real-time feedback. 67% of our organizations, they are using the manual performance management system. More than half. And what are we saying? So the future, you need an adaptable HR. Your HR leaders have to be adaptable. The person that we are actually trusting with your performance management, they have to be able to move with the times. They have to appreciate that the millennials are a different generation, their expectations are different, and they have to move along with that. The issue of technology, multi-generational workforces. Because of the wellness programs that we are putting in place, you find that most of us, because we are exercising, beginning to eat healthy, will be able to stretch probably up to 65 or so. But remember that we also have the Generation Z coming into play, the Generation Ys, they will be there. So it's a multi-generational workforce. And what are we saying? We need to be able to manage the different diversities from a performance point. We have to make performance management simpler. As it is, it's quite complicated. It's a complicated process. In terms of my conclusion, like I said, introduce Strategy Office for Performance Dashboard and Business Intelligence Management. Big data issues. Are we riding on that in terms of, that's where the world is going. Introduce strategies to enable targeted execution. We do have CAPEX, we do have OPEX, isn't it? But we don't have strategies. What are we saying as accountants? Can you give us a solution? Because we do have that, and you find that, for example, at my organization, we come up with an annual budget, right? But what then happens? During the year, we are busy. We use the term viramenting. So why are we even coming up with an annual budget in this VUCA environment? Why not come up with short-term budgets that are related to what we are pursuing? The issue of the people management function, we need to have it regulated. There are no regulations. As such, you will notice that in terms of corporate governance, people are doing as they wish on people. There is a lot of abuse. There is a lot of intimidation. There is a lot of abuse of authority because the profession is not regulated. And as such, you find that that then tends to affect performance management. And lastly, but not least, I'm asking you, as our captains of industry, are our people truly, truly, truly our assets, or they are our expense? Thank you very much. I'm not going to invite questions. I want you guys to go and reflect on what I've just taken.
This is typical HR people. They tell you what to do, they don't want questions. Let me take one or two questions. Yes. Mike, please. Is that Elisha? As usual.
Yes, already said as usual. So Regina, thank you for your presentation, and I appreciate when you bemoan the fact that there is no respect for the HR profession. It's the same lack of respect which is extended to other professions like teaching, for example, politics, but these are very important professions in our lives. Now, I've got a question for you. Taking into consideration the economic situation in Zimbabwe, to what extent has this situation impacted on the work ethic of the human resource function? And then what is the result on the performance of the human resource function, I mean people in Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. The economic environment in the country, the impact on the people factor. You will notice that the employee body that we are leading is heavily in debt. That's number one. Heavily, heavily in debt. They come to work physically, but psychologically they are not there. There is a lot of presentism. If you do employee engagement surveys today, you will see what I'm talking about, that is reality. Because they are coming with a lot of burden. Our unemployment rate is more than 90%. So the few employees that we have at our workplaces are the ones that are seasoned with looking after families and families. They are coming to us at the workplace as leaders who are also carrying a lot of burden. And you know what it is like when you yourself are psychologically stressed. You don't give a damn. You don't care. You become more and more task-oriented than consultative. And that's causing a lot of harm in terms of performance. So our performance levels are at the lowest. If your company is making profit today, that's the minimum that they can make. But I can tell you, with an improvement on the economic side, results will improve. The bottom line will definitely multiply, maybe times 3, times 4. So the economic environment has had such a huge impact on the people that we are leading. And as a leadership, we need to be sensitive. Thank you.
Take the last question. Yes.
Regina, thank you very much for your presentation. My question is, you mentioned that the majority of businesses in Zim are using the balanced scorecard as their performance management system.
Yeah.
And the more you look into it, it seems that that's a very archaic way of actually analyzing performance. My question is, have you come across something in your experience that you think is a much better alternative that we should be looking at?
Thank you for that. Any system is as good as its users. So I wouldn't say that this system is the best. It's how the system is being used that will actually give you the desired performance analytics or results that you expect. So garbage in, garbage out. It's as simple as that. So there is no system, one specific system that you can say it works best. It's all ingrained in how we are actually using that system to give us valuable results. I've worked though with systems that are tailor-made from within the organization, that are fully automated, and to me, it's the only way to go. So you can actually have some tailor-made systems that reflect more in terms of your business and its operations, and it would work better for you. Thank you.
Applause for Regina. Thank you. I want to call Pamela Chimamrombe for a token of appreciation. While she does that, may I ask those who want to go to Chobe and haven't submitted their passports to the next office to quickly dash there or risk missing the opportunity. Thank you very much. I want to invite Net One for a marketing slot. Now these ones we don't have to clap for them, is it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the clap. I'm here to give you a brief presentation on our mobile financial service, which is our One Money, which runs with the theme One Money, One Time. I believe by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to agree with that theme. Our One Money allows you to send and to receive money across networks. It allows you to pay your merchants, and also it allows you to pay your billers like your ZESA and your city council rates. But I'm sure you're asking yourself, what's so special about this One Money? Okay, this is how it goes. It offers you the most affordable rates in the market. And not only that, but it works exactly the same way as your bank works. So there is really no need for you to link your bank account with your phone because it works like a bank. So it will be like probably you going to Barclays and saying, can you please link my Barclays account with my Stanbic account? So it doesn't work right, it sounds silly. So that's how One Money works. It works exactly like a bank. So what it does, it allows you to do Zippy transactions from your One Money account onto your bank account and vice versa, like from your bank account to your One Money account. Your phone number will then work like your bank account. So for your convenience, what we've done is Net1, we have come up with a ZimSwitch debit card, which you can use anywhere in Zimbabwe. And the good news is at the moment we're giving it out for free to anyone who would wish to have one. We've got a desk outside that is offering the ZimSwitch cards. So the easy part, the convenient part of this is that you'll be able to send your money to the Gogos and the Kulus in the rural areas. You're also able to send money anywhere in the world and anywhere, sorry, around Zimbabwe. My apologies for that. We're getting there. My apologies for that. This debit card, the convenience part is that anyone can use it, even the school kids, your little brothers, your little sisters, your sons and your daughters at school, in boarding school. You don't have to wait for the visiting day for you to send them money, but all you can do is that you can zip the money to them and they can swipe as TAC money at the schools. In ending, I would like to say that good information deserves to be shared. So we at Net1, we say, do not tell someone, tell everyone. I will leave you watching a short video as a summary of what I was saying. Thank you very much.
It's hard not to take it for granted as it rests in your pocket. We have become so used to it, and the truth is, this thin flat device has changed the way we live. It is because of it that the world is so connected, so immediate, transforming our reality with just a touch of a screen or the push of a button. Each interaction reaching out to the next, connecting us all as one. From me to you, you to me, them to us to everyone. More than anything, mobile phones have brought us opportunity. Opportunity that can only be properly exploited with the right service provider. One that understands that it is more than just about the device, but rather about how much you can achieve with it. The question most people will ask is, does my connection to my service provider help me make my life seamless? Can it connect me to my world? Does it make my life easier? Does it make life simple and convenient? For instance, can it pay for my tomatoes at the corner? Can I keep the lights on for my daughter to do her homework? Can I send money to Gogo for her medicine? Can my customers pay me for my services without a hitch? Does it honor the promises I make? Is it the one that day in, day out, I can depend on without hesitation? Is it the one that gives me no limits? Is it the one that allows convenience to flow from me to you? Is it the one, the only in my life? Is it the one for my money? Is it One Money? For life to flow seamlessly from me to you, we all need the one. So we introduce One Money. The cell phone. It's hard not to take it for granted as...
Thank you very much. Regina, what we are about to do now is called performance evaluation of your presentation. And to do that, we have to open our ICAZ applications and start putting on the marks. If you can't access, you have to see Majongwe over there at tea break, of course, so that we don't interrupt our presentations. We want to move on to our next presentation, which is a technical update. And to do that, we have a millennial who needs no introduction. She goes by the name Valerie Muyambo, with over 17 years extensive auditing, financial management, and reporting experience. She joined Dawn Properties in July 2017 as finance director, having held the same position with Alpha Media Holdings Private Limited prior to that appointment. Before venturing into the private sector, Valerie spent 15 years with KPMG, 2 of which were South African practice, where she worked as a manager in both the learning and development, as well as the technical accounting department. She is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Accounting Procedures Weekend, Public Relations Committee, along with also being a member of the Zimbabwe Accounting Practices Board, International Financial Reporting Standards Subcommittee. Valerie also sits on the ICAZ Council, and before she comes, I was just talking to my, I was a bit perplexed at how he became a councillor without us drinking him, eating him, smoking him, and wearing a t-shirt saying, "Vote for me." Help me welcome Valerie to the podium.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will detract from the tradition. I won't go up there. I will just present from here. Yes, I'm a millennial. It's my right to do something different. Okay, welcome to the technical update, and I'm sure a lot of you people were asking me yesterday, so what are you going to talk about? It's a 30-minute presentation. There's no ways I'm going to go through a standard in 30 minutes. And people are like, oh, it's going to be one of those. I'll come after 10. If you tell those people, I'm sure they're going to miss out because we are going to be updating each other. I am not here to update you. We are going to do this as a team. So how are we going to do that? Okay. In front of you, each of you should have a device like the one on my slide there, which is a response pad, which is the way we're going to run this session. My aim is to make this session 100% interactive with 100% participation. We are preparing for elections after all, and the beauty of my device is that your vote is truly your secret. You can only, your neighbor can only know what you're voting if you show them, but you don't need to show them. And guess what? The results are instant. There will be no counting. We will see them instantly after you have voted. Okay. So before you do anything, some of you are already pressing them, which concerns me because I'm not sure what are we. Okay, but don't worry. When we get there, I'll tell you what to do. All right. Let's have a practice question to just make sure we all know how the response pads work. They're already on, there's no on button for you, so all you need to do is to select the answer that you prefer. Our first question. We are preparing for elections after all. If these were your presidential candidates for Zimbabwe, who would have your vote? Okay, the polling is open. There are letters there, A to G. Those are the only ones you can select. If you select K, because you are hoping that there's something hidden, it will actually tell you that there's no such option. So please select from A to G. These are your candidates, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ask me how old they are. They all qualify. They are fully dedicated to being the president. Just press the letter, it will give you a tick, and you can see that your response has been acknowledged. If you want to change it, you can change, just press the next letter, and it will tick that your last response is the one that I will see. Okay, and some of you are overthinking this. Just choose one. Is it Madam Boss? Is it Jar Praiser? Is it Comrade Fatso? Is it George Chigoa, Winky D, Baba Jukwa, Amara Brown? Okay, sorry, there's a hand. Okay, some of you are overcomplicating this. I said just press the letter. If you've gone somewhere else, please go back to a blank screen and just click on the letter of choice. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm just dealing with one technical. Okay, has everyone voted? Sorry? Okay. Okay, do you want to see how you voted? I'm lying. We'll announce results on Sunday morning. And there we go. So it looks like, oh, Madam Boss is your new president. Woo-hoo! Okay. It's tightly contested, but it looks like people prefer musicians to be their president. I think we will need to, give this view so that people actually then campaign to be presidents, because you look like you want to be entertained by your president, isn't it? Noted. Okay, and Baba Jukwa, I guess you need that analysis as well. Okay. All right, so we're all happy with how the response pads work. Okay, so now we're going to go into our session. Okay, we're going to go through the year so far, and I will do a short IFRS 9 survey just to see where we are in terms of preparedness. Then our scenario for the day will be a Zimbabwean story. Ladies and gentlemen, please note this is a purely hypothetical situation. If it in any way reflects what is happening at your organization, that is unintentional. Looking ahead, and then we will conclude. Okay, so the year so far, we've had two important standards that became effective for periods beginning 1 January 2018. Those are IFRS 9, which is your financial statements, and IFRS 15, revenue from contracts with customers. Now, I've just put a comment there to say half-year reporting should give an indication of the impact of these standards have on various entities. But I know amazingly, for some people, we will suddenly get a shock at year end. Half year, there'll be nothing. And guess what? 31 December 2017, they probably said, these financial statements will not have a material effect on our financials. But suddenly, 31 December 2018, it'll be something different. So we just want to know, where are we in terms of preparedness? Have you really assessed the impact of IFRS 9, because it is already effective for most of us? So that is why we're going to do the survey. Okay, so the first question. What industry does the entity you represent operate in? Is it banking? Is it financial services other than banking? Is it neither banking nor other financial services? Or is it a blend? I'll give you 5 more seconds. Okay, let's see how you voted. Okay, so most of the people in this room, 65%, are saying the entities are neither banking nor other financial services. 16% are in financial services other than banking. 9% are in banking. Now, one of the things we noticed is that for the banking sector, a lot of effort was put into IFRS 9. Well, obviously, because the message that went out there is that this will have a significant impact on the banks. So a lot of work was put into that. And now I just want to understand how much effort has been put into the other industries. If your entity is in financial services other than banking, which is the 16%, have you assessed the impact of IFRS 9? Please respond. Is it material? Is it immaterial? Or do you believe that this is just a standard for the banks? Or do you think that the auditors are going to be the ones to assess and advise you? Or you just are overwhelmed by these standards? Okay, so it was 16%. There were 178 votes. Amazingly, 90-something people are voting. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to do the maths. It looks like more than 50%. Okay, let's see your responses. Okay. All right. Okay, good. So 50% have actually assessed the impact. So we can see that 50% are saying we have assessed it, whether it's immaterial or material. Okay. And 11% of the 101 people that have voted actually believe that this is just a standard for the banks. Okay. ICAZ, please take note. 26% are convinced that it is the auditor's job to assess and advise them on what these standards mean and what should be done. And of course, yes, 14% believe that this is just too much work. They just don't have time for it. I mean, honestly, you're thinking of strategy's, futuristic thinking. Now you must be thinking about a standard. I know it is too much for some people. If your entity is in neither banking nor other financial services, have you assessed the impact of IFRS 9, which is the majority of the people represented in this room? 65% said this, so I expect to see lots of votes. Please tell us where you are in terms of preparedness. Okay, let's see how you voted. Okay, almost 50%, 48% have assessed the impact. 18% say it's a standard only for banks and other financial services. 25% are still with the auditors, saying they must do it. But only 9% are feeling overwhelmed by this one. Okay, thank you. Right. Now, I did say a lot more effort was put into banking, but what we'd like to understand from banking is, do you fully understand and are you able to apply the requirements of IFRS 9? Yes, you understand and you can apply. Do you partially understand and partially apply? Did someone else do the modeling for you, e.g. maybe a head office in South Africa, and you just apply it though you don't fully understand what you're doing? You understand, but you can't apply? You're completely clueless? Or again, you're just feeling overwhelmed? Okay, 5 seconds. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so the banks, I think, even at the AGMs, people were commenting on the impact of IFRS 9 even before the half-year results are out, but only 24% actually fully understand what they're doing with respect to IFRS 9 and can apply it. Partial understanding, we've got 33%. 18% are just using a model that someone else handed to them. They don't really know what they're doing, but they know they have to do it anyhow. I understand, but I can't comply. At least that one is very small, 2%. Completely clueless in the banking sector is 18%. Interesting. Okay, what does this tell us? What we're just trying to see is, in terms of focusing on our CPD for the next half of the year till December, what we need to focus on. But also it concerns us that even when a CPD session is held, which has the time to spend delving into these standards, the turnout is very low. Yet people are clueless. People do need to know what they're doing. People should be able to apply these standards. These standards do have a material impact on their financials. So we just like to appeal to you to take CPD more seriously, to think about these things more seriously, and actually make an effort to make sure that you understand what you're doing and not just plugging in numbers and hoping for the best. Okay, moving on. Our Zimbabwean story, as I said, very hypothetical. Okay, our company is Nata Limited. They are a beverage manufacturer listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. They are not Delta. I said they are called Nata. No. 50% output is actually exports, which contributes significantly to funded Nostro US dollars, what we like to call foreign currency. They actually make that, a lot of it. Is it still the company you thought? No. I told you it's hypothetical. The CFO's name is Shungu. He is a chartered accountant and he has exceptional networking skills. The year end is 30 June. And in September 2017, this thing is not working. Nata began investing in the property market. Okay, so we're going to talk about their investments in the property market. So the first thing that they did is they acquired an office block. It's in a prime location in Harare, which enjoys 100% occupancy. So the agreed price was $3 million in hard currency. That is what they could pay to get that office block. If they were going to pay using RTGS, it would be $4.5 million. Okay, remember I said Shungu is an exceptional networker. So in networking, he realized that a lot of corporates were struggling to make their own payments outside Zimbabwe. So he decided to facilitate making those payments on their behalf. So over the course of September, October, and November 2017, they made these payments on behalf of other corporates, and they got premiums of between 60 and 80%. Now, because of that margin, they then decided that they would make the payment for the office block via RTGS. Okay, that was their first investment. The next one is a lease of land. Okay, the lease of land is in a popular tourist destination. They signed a 30-year lease commencing 1 March 2018. They paid a deposit. The deposit is 40,000. In May 2018, a letter was received from the local authority of that town. That letter stated that they had signed a fraudulent lease agreement because the individual from whom they leased was not actually the owner. The land belongs to the state. Unfortunately, the lessor had left the country. They couldn't establish her whereabouts, so they had no source of recourse to that lady. Yes, it was a lady. But the land could be legally leased from the state as at 1 March 2018. And how would this happen? Well, the most senior authority at the local authority said to them, if you pay 100,000 to an individual account, I can facilitate for you to get the lease legally. Shungu, again, being the exceptional networker that he is, consulted a lawyer friend. And his lawyer friend said to him, this needs to look neat. For Nata Limited, you're a listed entity. So what I will do is I will facilitate for the payment to be made to that account, and I will charge you 20,000 to just, make it happen. So what he then did was, he then invoiced the lawyer, Nata Limited, a lease fee amounting to 120,000. Then the lawyer is the one who then did the transfer. Neat. The auditors will see nothing. Okay. Then the last thing is what they then decided to do was they decided to construct a tented safari camp. And for that, at the time that they decided, they needed to borrow. The board approved for the office block to be used as security for that borrowing. Okay. Then, because Shungu knew his bank and he knew that they would take a 50% haircut on whatever security was proffered, exceptional networking skills, he engaged a valuer friend. His valuer then said, at 31 May 2018, this office block is valued at 5.5 million. So, looked good, but when he went to the bank said, no, that's not our process. We have our own valuers. And we can only accept a valuation done by our approved valuers. And unfortunately for Nata Limited, the valuation came to 3 million. Okay, are we all on the same page? We are going to work together now. You are the ones who are going to tell me. What is the value of the office block acquired by Nata at 31 May 2018? So many CAs. I am in awe of the guidance I am going to get from all of you. Okay, I can see some people are guarding their responses. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Okay, now people are voting fearlessly. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Oh, really? So these guys paid 4.5. They have a valuation for 5.5. And you're saying if you were Shungu, you would take a $1.5 million knock. That's the majority. 48%. I'm just asking. 6% believe they would actually increase the value to 5.5 million. And, accounting is an art, not a science. So yes, 15% believe anything could be the value really. All depends on how you look at it. It's interpretation. Okay, in your opinion, what is the functional currency, i.e. the currency of the primary economic environment in which entities operate of Zimbabwe as things stand, in your opinion? I told you it's a technical update like no other.
If we don't go it up.
5 seconds. Someone just said to me in front here, Uno pega. Okay, let's see. Okay, so 28% of you believe that it is the US dollar. More of you, 35%, believe it's the RTGS. 24% say only the RBZ knows. And yet you are the reporters. No? So is the RBZ going to prepare your financials? Interesting. Oh, sorry, I need to reset this. Okay, Nata incurred valuation fees twice, one from Shungu's friend and the other from the bank's valuers. Is it right to book both expenses in your opinion? These financial statements were prepared under the supervision of someone here. Membership number. Will you book both? Okay, 5 seconds. Okay, let's see. 82% is unanimous. Yes, it is what it is. Both expenses were incurred. They should be booked. Okay. Well, 11% are strongly of the opinion that Shungu must have one valuation deducted from his salary. So remember I said Shungu could be anyone here. So you believe that your salary should be deducted if you incur these two expenses. No, I'm not saying it's wrong. Remember, this is your opinion. So I'm just taking it and absorbing it. Okay. Okay, now IFRS 16 leases is effective for periods beginning on or after 1 January 2019 and specifies how an IFRS reporter will recognize, measure, report, and disclose leases. Who is affected more by changes emanating from this standard? Okay, note I didn't say in your opinion. Who is affected more? Some of you are thinking, yeah, I know it's called IFRS 16 leases, but that's where my knowledge ends. Five seconds. Okay. All right. So this is correct. 50% of you have said the lessees are more affected, and it is correct because of that right of use asset. Okay, and the lease liability, those are new things that we're talking about that we haven't talked about before. It will have more of an impact on the lessees than on the lessors, but yes, it will have an impact on everybody, especially in terms of the disclosures that are going to need to be made after that. So we need to start thinking about IFRS 16. Okay. At the commencement date of a lease, a lessee is required to recognize both a right-of-use asset and a lease liability. In initially measuring the right-of-use asset at cost, a lessee includes any initial direct costs incurred. In your opinion, which of the following may be attributed as direct costs? We had a deposit, we had a lease fee. I called it a lease fee. You call it what you want. Okay, 5 seconds. Okay. Oh, the lease fee is a direct cost. The deposit, actually, a lot of people, 28% believe that you should just book both. Put 160,000 in there. After all, the paperwork is there, isn't it? So the auditors can see. Interesting. Okay, and the last question. Be honest with yourself and complete the following statement. When I look back from 1 January 2017 to date, I have been ethical in all respects beyond the shadow of a doubt. I've tried my best to be 100% ethical, but there have been 1 or 2 incidents where I've had to be more flexible for the sake of progress. I've been practical. Ethics is a relative term. There are at least 50 shades of gray after all. I have been rather unethical in certain key dealings, but it is not me. Blame it on the operating environment. Five seconds. Okay, it's introspection. Introspection. Ooh, 44%. Ethical in all respects. Okay, whether it was at the roadblock, whatever, whether it was in pricing of something you tried to sell, you have been ethical. No one was buying money, selling money. No one was doing that. Yes. Okay. 41% of you have tried. I think that's honest. You've tried. You've made an effort. And I like the honesty of the 10 and the 5%. We've just said, you know what, I was trying to be practical, and someone else says, you know what, it's not my fault. Yes, I've done it, but it's not my fault. Okay. Why did we do these questions? These are helping us to look ahead and think about what is important going forward in the year, in the next half of the year. And for us, when I look at, and when we look at it in terms of, as APC, the Accounting Procedures Committee, there are some things that we have been thinking about. What should we focus on? We need to discuss our functional currency again. I know there's a paper out there, but I think even from what you saw with the answers, we need to have another discussion, a frank discussion, and we need to see what is the way forward. Are we reporting properly? Does it make sense? IFRS 16 is coming. Right now, you need to start assessing its impact, and don't tell us that it doesn't have a material impact at 31 December 2018. Then next year, you're going to see what it's going to do to your numbers, especially if you are a lessee. Are your CPDRs on track? I've already talked about this. Let's take CPD more seriously. Whether there's blockchain, artificial intelligence, we've been talking about these technological advancements. Nothing can replace your ethics and integrity as a chartered accountant. And you need to be more conscious of that. We saw the responses. People have been trying to be ethical, but it's not easy. But you need to actually train yourself to just say, this is me, and this is where I stand. These are the values that I will stand for as a member of the institute. And one of the things that the auditors are always talking about is NOCLA. And I think as a preparer, we typically want to just say, oh, it's for the auditors. But it actually affects everybody who is a professional accountant. So we need to think about, well, what are we doing? There are these new provisions. What they actually say is the auditor overrides the duty of confidentiality if they pick up that there has been non-compliance with laws and regulations. And they can just go and report. Okay, so we need to ask ourselves, are we taking care of ourselves? Okay, the objectives are enhanced ethical conduct, protection for stakeholders and the general public, and, sorry, I went too fast, but it's enhanced, just enhanced transparency, making sure that stakeholders are aware of what is really going on at the entities. And professional accountants need to work together. It's not the auditor's role to pick up whether you have done something wrong. Let's work together. Albert Einstein says, in theory and practice are the same. In practice, they are not. I asked accounting questions, but the answers are so diverse. Yet we are all working with the same standard, which is why we need to attend those CPD sessions, so that we are all on the same page. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Before you move back, can I ask you I picked the wrong take to present a token of appreciation to Valerie.
Thank you.
And Valerie, are we allowed to give to SEC those things? I think they'll work better on Monday. Or our token of appreciation, courtesy of Olivin and ICAZ. Just so you know, there is a Centennial shop opened. The prices are RTGS or swipe. But if you bring your US dollar, it's geje, as RBZ says. Winter scarves for $20. ICAZ logo fabric, $15 per meter. ICAZ Golf Exec umbrella, $60. Golf umbrella, $50. Blazer, $175. Conference bag, $5. Accredited training office, plaque, $305. Thank you.
Sorry, in front of you, you also have a little flyer from ACID. If you enjoyed using the response pads, they could do amazing things in your organizations. Please keep the flyer and get a hold of them if you'd like to hire them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Response 90s.
Response 90s. Response 90s.
Questions? I'll just pick one question. I'll just pick one question from Elisha.
Valerie, thank you. Now, if you look at what has been happening, companies and individuals are holding certain values in their bank accounts. Now, but at the same time, on the parallel rate, values are doing other things in terms of the premiums. So, from a technical point of view, okay, do you think at some point in time we'll need to have a massive devaluation of those values because you've got other TGS values different from what you're saying is your functional currency, the US dollar? And what are going to be the implications in terms of reporting going forward?
Thank you, Elisha. I think I can't say that's from a technical point of view. It sounds more prophetic. I didn't want to say political, it's a P word. Okay, I would say that it's a very complicated question to answer because you have a scenario where someone only gets revenue locally It could be via transfer, whatever, via EcoCash. But if they go to the bank and they need to bring in whatever they need to bring in, the bank will honor the payment quite instantly, and it's at 1-to-1. So what do they do about their bank balance? You've got someone else who is who brings in a lot of the Nostro US dollars, and if they go to the bank, they will get whatever they need to pay for externally. They will get it. So whatever that balance is the same. Then you've got others who then believe that they need to go elsewhere to buy currency. So to then look at each of those scenarios and come up with something prescriptive for the country is already a challenge, which is why I'm saying let's have that discussion again and maybe help each other to find the way forward. When we looked at it in the last year, we said predominantly it was still US dollar, but I think right now we just need to discuss it again. I don't have the answer, because it's not really technical. Some of these things, like who sets a currency for a country, for example, is it going to be ICAZ? You know, some of these things we need to have engagement is not just at ICAZ level, but with the other stakeholders involved.
Yeah, okay, I think it's technical, but anyway, because although it might be happening on the sidelines, but when you go into Pick and Pay in the supermarket, and when you go and buy things, they actually reflect that differential, therefore it becomes an actual cost to you as well, a cost to the company.
Okay, so confirm, I just want to understand what you're saying. You're talking about the prices that are charged in the supermarket versus...
To say it becomes a cost on the balance sheet of the company.
Which company are we I want to make sure I'm on the same page.
For example, where a company is importing raw materials and they have to buy from the parallel market and they pay a premium and therefore they price that into their products as well.
Yes. So those are the questions. So I don't want to have the answers here. So my question is that a cost of doing business? Is that a cost to be capitalized to the inventory? All those things, those are questions. You are CAs, I'm a CA. I want us to discuss this together because I'm not operating in some of those environments. Some of these things I may not be able to relate, but it's good when people actually tell us their stories, how they're dealing with things, so that we can then be able to map a way forward together. So I want to say I don't have answers in this session. What we need to do is we need to engage. Engage, engage, engage.
Thank you very much. I'll just ask one more question. Is Old Mutual ready? Old Mutual?
Yes, sir.
Yes, if they're ready, then they can come forward. As I just take one more question, one quick question.
And I'm sure my comment may cause, alarming despondency, but the reality is, with the varied transactions that are on the market and the extent to which they are so varied and so disconnected, I think it's getting more difficult for auditors to issue a completely clean opinion. And I think over time, depending on how things are going to be, I'm not saying that's where we are. I think that's really where it may end up going. Because how do you say something, how do you define what is true and fair in a market like this one? It's just a comment. Sorry? No, I know. That's why I'm saying you use the P word to say, if we really go through the, if we really look at it and say, listen, is this true and fair? And how do you define those measurements? The issue is more on the opinions that are issued and the disclosures that the government has told.
Thank you for that comment to my... Thanks, Simba.
Thank you very much. A round of applause as she... You can open your ICAZ mobile apps and evaluate their presentation. Old Mutual?
We have been offering integrated financial services to the Zimbabwean economy for over 110 years.
Welcome to Green Zone. Our vision and passion lies in being our customers' most trusted partner and helping them achieve their lifelong financial goals.
Our aim is to overcome economic challenges by investing and exploring new ways of improving business and developing our economy.
We are investing in power generation through the construction of hydroelectric schemes and renewable energy projects. We simplify financial management with our On the Money, a program developed by studying the unique characteristics of Africa's Big Five. By building low-income housing units, we contribute towards the national vision of providing housing for all.
We upgrade infrastructure at rural clinics.
We set up the Kurera Ukondla Youth Fund to assist the youth and the Distressed and Marginalized Areas Fund to help establish businesses going through a lean patch. The SME sector is pivotal to Zimbabwe, and our assistance to small-scale sugarcane and banana grower schemes helps empower communities and revive the economy.
By setting up information technology libraries across the country, we help educate communities.
To celebrate the diverse Zimbabwean culture, we sponsor and promote the arts. We promote and sponsor schools rugby in selected low-income areas and help develop the cricket legends of the future at the Old Mutual Heath Street Cricket Academy and encourage health and wellness through Old Mutual road races. Our world-class banking halls and green zones provide customers a congenial environment as they access products and services under one roof.
Smart partnerships extended to communities play a key role in promoting environmental awareness and creating a better future for all.
We are committed to becoming a recognized leader in responsible business and leaving the world we live in today a better place than it was yesterday. Do great things. Old Mutual.
Thank you very much. One of our perennial platinum sponsors. Round of applause for them. The reason why I said perennial is I want them next year to also sponsor platinum. For this time, let us go for tea break. I expect us to be back at exactly 10:40 to carry on with our program, which is time as usual. Thank you.